Welcome to my studio, everyone. My name is Michael Markowsky, and today we are going to be making a painting by one of my, well, not necessarily one of my favorite artists. This might be the very first time. But I will say, as much as an opportunity as today is to poke a little bit of fun at someone else's expense, I do think that it's not quite as ridiculous and funny as it may seem. I think actually what this artist has created, it has certainly become a phenomenon that is worthy of some kind of actual serious kind of examination, I guess. So let's kind of dive right into all of this here. So, where should we start here? Okay, so the very first thing I want to mention right off the top is that there's a link to a Dropbox account in the video description below, and you click on that and you'll see a bunch of things listed, including future episodes. But for today's, if we click on this, Cecilia Giménez, and you'll see, whoa, a lot of different files here. What do all these things mean? Well, a few of these things are PDFs, and they're exactly the same as the files above them. But let's leap into... this is the original painting that was created in this very small church in northern Spain. This is a piece called Ecce Homo by Elias Garcia Martinez in 1930. So he was a Spanish painter, and he did some murals on the inside of this church, which is a common thing. I was watching a few other videos, and some people said, well, if this, it's not surprising this painting was falling apart because it was painted directly on the wall. And I was thinking, well, almost every painting up until the mid 1500s, early 1600s were painted directly on the wall. And if you've ever heard of the Sistine Chapel, it's not doing so bad, which was painted directly on the wall, or the School of Athens by Raphael. I mean, on and on and on. Most artwork was painted directly on walls or onto small wood panels. It wasn't until maybe the 1700s where you started having things on canvas, and they were much larger. Anyway, so this is the original painting. And if you want to do a version of the original painting, I did a tracing of the original here, which you could print out, and you could trace onto a canvas. You'll also see that I've included a black and white version and a reversed black and white version. These are all on the Dropbox account. And then here is the source of all of the laughter and controversy, is Cecilia Giménez's attempted restoration of Martinez's original painting, which has been dubbed the Ecce Mono, which roughly translate to "Behold the monkey." Ecce Homo is "Behold the man." When you translate Ecce Homo from Latin into English, Ecce Mono is behold, and then mono is Spanish for monkey. So it's Latin and Spanish there. It's obviously a play on words. It's meant to be kind of quite funny. But anyway, so this is the artwork that she created over top of the original, effectively destroying the original painting by Garcia Martinez that he created, that had been up there for over 80 years or so. So here's her version of it. And then here is the tracing that I did too, if you want to print that out. So this is what that would look like if you want to print that out. Now, I'm going to do something just a little bit different, just because I thought this might be a kind of a fun opportunity to just to have a little bit of fun, and also to show people a few different techniques while we're at it. So it's not all just a big silly April Fool's joke. We can actually learn some interesting things and experiment with some techniques, none of which should be entirely new to anybody who's watching me now, but if you are, I'm going to show you a little bit about how I did what I've done. And I've had a chance to do a few things here. So, and I'm going to play the video on how these were done. But you'll see I've got two canvases here that I've already prepped so that I don't have to wait for these things to dry during today's episode. This one here, what I've done is I went and cut out the printout. I went and cut out, let's see, I'll show you these side by side. So for this canvas, what I did is I printed out the image you see on the left, and then I just cut it, and then I used some Mod Podge to glue it onto the canvas. And then this image here, I also printed out. You can see it's inverted, right? So I printed it out, and then I cut it out, and then I glued it face down onto here. And I'm using a photo transfer process. So I'm going to rub this paper off to reveal the image below, which will look like this when it comes off. You can kind of maybe see the outline of that shape that's there. So I'm going to play that video for you here in a second, so that if you want, you can do this exact same process here. So let me find, let me see, while I get this sorted out. Okay. Oh, I probably cut the music away, didn't it? Let's see if I can do both at the same time. Okay. So you could see me here just going through some of these images. I also thought it might be just interesting. I'm just going to go back here for a second. This is the type of paper that I used to produce these, to print out my images. I use this slightly thicker paper. So this is 60-pound paper. Your regular paper, I think, is about 20 pounds. And here you go. You can see me now. I'm going to cut this image out. Okay. So there's that image. And I'm going to glue it onto a canvas that is raw. I haven't gessoed it. I haven't done anything. It's just a plain, bare canvas. So I'm going to glue this on using Mod Podge. And I'm just going to use kind of a regular brush here. regular acrylic painting brush. If it gets stuck. Okay. So adhere this onto the canvas. I'm just going to very liberally apply Mod Podge all over this surface. Now this goes on clear, so I could have painted a background image and put this image over top of it, because the Mod Podge again is a clear fluid. So you can take this, so you can see I was lining, I'm trying to line up the line at the very top there with the top of the canvas so that it appears straight. And then I go and make sure it's pressed down and squeezing out the extra paint or the Mod Podge that was underneath there. And you'll also see that I'm not painting on the face of the image yet. I'm going to just I put the Mod Podge underneath. And this is just going to help make sure that it's as wrinkle-free as possible. And you can use this same process to stick any magazine or newspaper or photocopy, printout, poster paper to create collages on canvas. So I'm just going around and cleaning all of the extra paint that was kind of built up off the side after I squeezed it out from underneath the picture. Okay. So let's zip ahead here. I'm going to clean the brush off. And then here, I'm now going to take the other image and I'm going to use Mod Podge to transfer it onto the canvas. Grab another brush. And then you can see I just take it, cut it all out, grab some newspaper. Oh, the other thing too I'm doing here, this is a panel I've pre-gessoed. So I'm just giving it a good sanding to remove some of the tooth on there, which is going to help make it as smooth as possible so that when I do the photo transfer onto the canvas, it produces a nice solid image with as little you can see how much sawdust came off, or not sawdust, but I guess gesso, which is essentially plaster, came off. Nice smooth canvas there. And let's move it a little bit forward, Michael. Okay. So here, let's start again here. I just take my photo transfer medium. You'll see I put quite a lot on there. I find you don't want it to be too much, but you want it to be thick enough that it not only covers the image thoroughly, but it's going to be still wet when you apply it, and because basically you're gluing the paper to the canvas, and you're ultimately gluing the printout that is on the paper to the canvas. And we'll see here just a few minutes how I transfer that onto the canvas. We're going to rub all that paper right off. Okay. And I can do a little bit more. Okay, so I peel it off. And then you'll also see what I should have done beforehand is made a little bit of a line for myself to determine where the top of that roll is in the image to help create as straight of a line as possible. That would have been smart to have done beforehand, so if you're watching this right now, learn from my own mistakes. It's not that big of a deal, but just to, it's a fairly simple image, so the more precise you can be at such a simple stage, I think the better possible. So clean that up, and then I just go around really making sure it's sticking as well as possible. Okay, so we'll close all that down. Yes, and Deborah says we did this with Murakami's flowers. Yes, and of which I still have yet to re-edit all of the things I did for that episode over again. I'm in my final week of teaching. Well, I guess not this week, but the week after is the final week of classes at Emily Carr. So as soon as classes are over, I'll be able to catch up on all the other things that I've been putting off for quite a while there. Okay, so as a result, after all of that, here, let's just take a look. Nope, I want... That's this one here. Okay, so at the end, now I've got these two different images. This one was the one that I used the regular Mod Podge for. Let me just bring those tools back out. All right, so this was using the Mod Podge. You could use the glossy Mod Podge. I just, you've probably heard me say many times, I always prefer matte to glossy unless I'm at the very, very end and I want to put like a varnish over something. Varnishes tend to be glossy, so I would use the matte personally. There's no rule against requiring you to use it. And then here, this is a version doing the photo transfer. So I'm going to show you both methods here really quickly. Okay, so to do this rubbing, because I'm going to start this and that way I can set it aside and let it dry for a little bit. What you want is your canvas. You want to let this dry. What I did this maybe about 3 hours ago. It doesn't need 3 hours, but really the longer you leave, when you're doing anything with adhesives, gluing anything, the longer it sits, the stronger the bond is going to be. If you leave it overnight, that's even better. So I've got that. And then here's just a few rags. Okay. So here, I'm just going to take this water and just soak the face of this picture. And you can see the image sort of appearing through the paper, which is exactly what we want. Again, I didn't put anything on this back side, right? Because this is the paper, and I'm going to slowly start removing this paper here. Okay, so you see I just get it wet, and the paper just starts to fall apart. Right? This is like, you know, if you've ever what does this remind me of? Well, it reminds me if you've if you've erased something on a piece of paper for too long, and it just starts tearing the paper up. And I think, you know, now that we're doing this episode, this is actually a pretty good image to use for this photo transfer process, especially for if it's your very first time actually doing this. Because if it doesn't turn out, and you've got some places where you've rubbed the image away entirely, well, then you're sort of exactly where Cecilia Giménez was, and what provoked her to so-called restore this painting in the first place, because there wasn't really much of an image left. Okay. Let's keep on going here. You can use the cloth to rub on here. Let's say I took this cloth. I can use the cloth to do it. It works really well. The only thing is I find it easier to use my fingers to do this because I have more tactile control. I can feel when I'm pressing too hard or too lightly on there. So the main difference between these two different methods is that with this one but if I do this properly, there's no paper left, and there's really very little texture to it. It's basically the image from the inkjet print is now glued to the top layer of paper. It's kind of interesting too, like with my inkjet print, even though it's a black and white image, my computer to create gray uses a bunch of different colors to make that happen, which shouldn't be too surprising for anybody who's, you know, done the color wheel, right? That to make a gray, we basically take a lot of different colors and mix them together, and then we add some white. Now in this case, the printer, what it does is it mixes a bunch of all the colors together and just uses the white of the canvas to create a white, right? Or it just doesn't put as much ink down onto the paper. It's actually quite an ingenious process. Now, why they do that as opposed to using just black ink and putting less black ink in places, I don't know. But anyway, that's just how my Epson printer works. Okay, so one of the things with this too, with this method, the photo transfer process, is it sometimes takes a few steps here. Like you might look at this and be like, wow, cool, looks great, we're already done. We'll let this dry, and then you might find it ghosts up again and it starts to look gray and the image fades again. And why that's happening is there's just the paper that was there, because there's probably still some paper, is sort of drying, and it goes more opaque again. So I suspect that that's going to happen here in a few minutes. You can can see as I'm rubbing, you can see that the paper is no longer just white paper anymore. It's some of the ink is starting to come off, which means I'm pretty close to transferring the entire image and rubbing most of the paper off. And there's these spots where the image, it looks like some of the paper, or some of the image, the paper's gone, and now I'm rubbing away some of the actual printout. And like I said, if this was, you know, a photograph of my daughter or something, it might be quite frustrating to see parts of that image disappearing or falling away because I've rubbed too much. But I think with this painting, it just works perfect, because I also, we'll look at a few of the images online, because it's also deceptive. A little bit of the media might not have been playing super fair with her. When you see this image here, this is like what the painting looked like about 10 years before she actually did her attempted restoration. It actually, by the time that she started painting on it, it was much more degraded than it actually appeared. So, in fact, let's do that right now. I'm going to let this dry. There's still little bits that are, you know, these little tiny, I don't know, eraser. It always reminds me of just like parts of an eraser on there. So let's just brush that off to the side. I'll let this dry. And we'll move our water out of the way. Okay. You know what? I was going to show you on there. Okay, where'd it go? Oh, there we are, okay. So actually this is what the image looked like by the time that Cecilia Giménez actually began her restoration. So you see, it is significantly more, let me see. So you can see it's significantly worse than this image. This is what it looked like for many years, but it started to really fall apart, where, you know, pieces would be flaking off onto the pews and to the floor while she was sitting there, and I think she had had enough. She did ask the church membership if she could do a restoration to it. So it wasn't like she just went up to it and started painting and in a disguise and no one knew what was happening and everyone freaked out. She was totally, you know, open about what she was doing. And another big thing that was also kind of forgotten is that she was not done her work when the outcry happened. She started working on it. She had to leave on to go out of town. I don't know if it was a vacation or a trip or whatever, or to visit a relative, but she began the work and then had to leave rather suddenly. And while she was away, people saw it and flipped out, right? So and then it became this huge tourist attraction, became was all over the news. There's a really funny skit on Saturday Night Live with Kate McKinnon pretending to be Cecilia Giménez. So she has been kind of unfairly maligned, I think, throughout this whole process. It is pretty funny to see where it is at this particular stage in the process, but again, it wasn't finished. She had permission to do it. The actual image itself was barely visible by the point she was trying to do it, so she had the best intentions. Who knows how it would have actually ultimately turned out if she hadn't been interrupted and was allowed to complete the project. Anyway, I just wanted to say all of that going forward. Okay, so let's get back to this here. So I've got now two images that I can use. And they're probably almost indistinguishable right now. Maybe I'll just put them side by side here. Let's do that. I'll put this one here since it's next to all its rubbings. So this was the one done using Mod Podge. I just cut it out, glued it onto the surface. This is the one using the photo transfer method. Another small little difference is the photo transfer method. This material is white, right? So if there's let's say if I had glued this entire paper, if I had not cut it out, and let's say I had painted both of these backgrounds purple, right? And let's say I glued both sheets entirely right, what would happen was I would see any of this material, if it bled out on the edges, I would see white coming out over top of the image, which may or may not be desirable at all, but just something to keep in mind that it's a white material, whereas this is clear, right? It will dry totally clear. You cannot see where you've applied it, especially, I've applied it with the matte, and so if it goes on to another matte material, you don't even see a difference in shine at all, right? So two different methods to get to essentially the same place, although this one, there's very little sort of texture. This one, obviously, the paper's much thicker, right? This one might appear to be maybe a little bit more ultimately authentic, I suppose. But anyway, two different methods. We're at the same place now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to disfigure our artworks. We're going to add some paint over top of them. Maybe I'm just going to let the one I did the rubbing, the photo transfer off, and we'll do the collage first. There's two things what you can do. Remember, I just put the Mod Podge on the back side of this and glued it down. I could add Mod Podge and paint it over the face of this artwork to seal it in if I was basically done, right? And if I also... yeah, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and paint directly onto this surface. So let's think about like what colors we want. Now, this image on the left is where we ultimately want to get to. As a reminder, this was what it used to look like. Obviously, you could also do this process with color photos if you want. But I think, and we've got all this white around the edge. Now, you could just leave it white. The wall inside of the church itself was also white. But, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the entire surface like a kind of almost maybe a little bit of this warm yellowish gray, I think. Almost like a like an eggshell color, or what is known as like unbleached titanium white, which might sound like a mouthful. Titanium white is the most commonly used white that you see in your artist's palette, because it is super opaque, right? It covers really, really well, as we've shown many times. When we paint something with white, everything below it disappears. So let's get our materials out here. All of our colors that we're going to use. Remember, everything fits inside of a shoebox. And let's start putting some colors on this color wheel here. We're not going to need too many different colors, so I wouldn't put too much paint on the palette, because you don't want to be just needlessly wasting paint, if you can help it. And we'll use a little bit. Do I want to use it? So the next question I guess I have for myself is, how much of this image do I want showing through? You know, we've gone to the effort, or at least I have. I mean, you could just transfer this sketch directly onto the canvas, and then you'd be kind of where we are at right now. But I have gone to the effort of printing this out and putting it there. Do I want any of this showing through? I don't know. It might get a little confusing if we make this too transparent. So I think I might just cover it up, and it'll just be kind of one of those fun things for, you know, I can do a time lapse of it and you could see the original and then it changing. If I really wanted to completely obliterate it, I would use some white in my mixture. Okay. I'm gonna use a paintbrush. Maybe I'll use a little bit bigger one. One of these brushes here. Looks like there's a lot of people who are busy finishing other paintings that we've done, which actually makes me really happy. You know, the fact that now I've been doing this for over a year and we've built up, you know, kind of a library of images. So if you're not interested in doing this painting, well, there's certainly enough other paintings to keep you occupied, right? Okay, so let's take, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I was going to paint this kind of an off-white, wasn't I? Maybe I'll paint the outside off-white, and then I'll paint the inside a slightly different color. Or I could paint the whole thing one color, and then clean it up at the end with an off-white. I think that's what I'll do. Sorry, I'm always thinking out loud. You know what? I think I might be able to, if I look at this, I think I could just use the warm yellow directly on here. I think that's what I'm just going to do, actually. So I'm going to take some water. This is, again, really one of the only times I ever use water when I'm making a painting. An acrylic painting is right here at the beginning with my underpaintings. Okay. Actually, I'm just going to get even more on here. I don't want it to be too soaking wet, because then that's going to absorb into the paper, and then it could slow down my entire process, which would be one reason why you may consider actually using Mod Podge to seal this surface, but I think we should be fine. Okay. I think we'll do the exact same with the other image. So this also, now I can see this image quite clearly through the surface. So I'll just move this out of the way. So let's just swap these out. Now, it started to kind of go a little bit white again and kind of ghost out. Do I want to rub any more off and try to get a little bit more of a more transparent image? I don't know. I think, especially since I'm going to just cover this up entirely, I don't think it needs any extra work, and I'm happy just moving forward. Anyway, I just thought I would use this as an opportunity to show, especially for some of the new viewers to the show, oops, it needs a lot more water in here, how I actually, different ways to use some of these materials while we're having a little bit of fun here. This will also effectively kind of help stop the that process of the paper going more and more opaque. You know, it's really interesting, what happened in this whole incident. I think, you know, exposed some things about, like, the art world that aren't so pretty. One of which is the kind of contempt that, you know, the sort of the gatekeepers in the art world are, you know, usually are mostly, to be honest, like old white men, right? Let's be frank about it. And there also happen to be not just old white men, but old, very wealthy, old money white men from Europe and kind of New York kind of area who tend to kind of look down on anyone that doesn't look like them, including and you know, people like women, poor people, people with less education, non-English speakers, as I struggle to speak English myself. And so I think there is a part of this whole story that, you know, shows some contempt that the art establishment had or has for a so-called outsider artist. And because no one cared about this original painting, the Martinez painting. It was sitting in a small chapel in the middle of a small village in northeastern Spain that wasn't getting a lot of attention. No one certainly went out of their way to go see this painting until Cecilia Giménez did her restoration to it. And I think there's even some people that kind of even resent the fact that it's now kind of become a bit of a phenomenon because of that. Because I think they feel like it gives people permission to alter existing artworks and not let the experts handle things. Okay. So we got 2 paintings drying here. I can see this one. It's it has wrinkled a little bit. It's easier for me now to see the wrinkles now that I got yellow on it. I don't know if I can. There's a kind of a wrinkle right down the middle. I'm not sure if it's apparent. I can't seem to get it on camera, to make it visible on camera. But anyway, I'm gonna put these side by side and blow dry them really quickly here. Ugh. Oh. Okay, cool. So again, it's kind of neat to see these side by side like this, and you know, this one, we see the image is a little bit clearer. It's a little bit, we see the blacks are darker, so there's a lot more contrast, so it's maybe easier to see, let's say, the eyes and lips and all that kind of stuff. This one here, you know, it's using the photo transfer process, so it is faded a little bit. Part of that is because maybe I didn't rub enough of the paper off. But you can, I think you can maybe also already start to see a little bit of the image that Cecilia Giménez created. And you can see how it's not, you know, it's not like she just sort of invented that image right, you know, out of her mind. It came from a real attempt to try to get some of these details, but because the image had kind of faded to such an extent, I'm really not surprised that she got the image that that we see today. Anyway, okay, so which one? It doesn't matter which one we start. Maybe we'll just let this one dry a little bit longer, and we'll work on the one that we just used the regular Mod Podge to transfer here. He's casting a shadow. Is that better? Paula says, I love this painting. I learned a lot from your art class. Thank you, Michael. Deborah says, I will catch the rest of this later. I am being called to a late supper. Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday, even though it might be in lockdown. Like, yeah. Depending on where you are, some people are going into a third lockdown, I guess. I know here in Vancouver, they just closed the restaurants and everything down. Not that I've been going to restaurants anyway, but... So... Let's go to... Okay. So, she has made a decision to paint this background quite dark gray. It wasn't nearly as dark originally. It's interesting, just sort of flipping back and forth. Again, you can kind of see a little bit of why, oops. It's not so surprising that she got, let's see if I look at this one here. All right, you can see kind of all those same details are there. I think where things really got kind of a little bit out of control is around the mouth here. I think she got a little confused there, but the eyes are roughly in the right place. I actually lined these up pretty close in the computer to get these same results. So anyway, okay. So where should we start here? Oh my goodness. Let's I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way. I'm going to mix a really dark. I'm going to start with some browns, I guess. Let's get a little more warm yellow. I'm not sure how much of the cool yellow I'll use. And so let's mix a brown. So to mix a brown, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my warm yellow, my warm red, and my warm blue, and I'm going to mix them together. So let's take some warm yellow, let's take some warm red, and obviously we mix these together, we're going to get an orange. Warm yellow, warm red, get an orange. Now let's take some warm blue. It's gonna, that was a lot, so let's see how much we actually need. Okay. So this is like your kind of a this brown. I think we can use in a few different places. So let's go right at it here. I think she's got. I think she's probably started like this. Probably trying to outline the face. The brown, right? Which would make sense. You got this kind of oval shape. I think she probably would have started like this and maybe even have gone a little bit wider here, right? Because this would have been the dark area underneath the, or for the beard and underneath the chin. How about we'll just keep that there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my warm red and I'm going to make this a little bit more reddish. I'm going to take a bit of cool red in here as well. Okay, so I basically took my brown. You see I didn't change brushes. I didn't wash my brush. And I'm just going to paint all of this red. The original, I think, has this kind of magenta quality underneath here. And then I think she probably took this same color and put a bit up into the hair. I see a bit of it here as well. This is fun. I've never actually done anything like this before. Okay. So it looks like he's got bandages on. Poor Jesus here. Okay. What should we do next? Got these colors in. Oops, I just realized she put this band down here, but that's okay because when we do, we're gonna use some white and gray. I guess I was looking at the original. I think what's interesting about the original is we have this roll that's kind of rolling this way. So it rolls up here and then it rolls in behind here. When she created hers, I think this confused her because it had mostly rubbed away by that point. I don't think she had access to this image, right? When I showed you that previous picture, let's go back to it. Come on. Right, you could see that all of this was gone. So she didn't really have much to refer to in that image. It's, you know, the more, now that, you know, that's one of the things I find fascinating about doing this kind of process, painting other people's paintings, is it really forces me to look at the painting a little bit more carefully. And in doing this, I am much more empathetic towards her. Like just this thing down here, I'm like, oh, I see. She wasn't just, you know, she wasn't an idiot or something. That part of the painting was completely gone when she got to it, right? So she had no idea that it was supposed to roll in behind the work. That's interesting. That again is really helpful to know. Okay, so let's oops. What should we do now? I think we're gonna take now this same color and I'm just gonna go back to my brown here. Maybe a little bit more yellow. We'll add some white to this and we'll mix a so-called skin tone, a Caucasian skin tone. Okay, so take a bit of white, put this on the brush, and then you can kind of decide like what kind of a brown do you want, right? So this color right there is great for like you know, it's pretty close to like maybe the inside of your hand or to like a blush on your cheeks. But let's say if it's too red, let's add more yellow in here. We're gonna need to get a little bit more out, but put some more on. Okay, so you can see now we're much closer to the painting. And if you want the more yellow, you just add more yellow to it, right? Pretty self-explanatory. So let's. So again, what I think happened to her is she probably painted it in this way, where she started like this and started applying these paints like this, and then all of a sudden found that she might not have been able to see the face very clearly at all underneath her painting. which reminds me, there I put a link to it in the video description below. The link to a scene from it's called the Bean, the movie Bean from 1997. It's featuring Mr. Bean, and there's a scene where he causes all sorts of chaos and accidentally defaces James McNeill Whistler's famous painting of his mother, the artist's mother, and then he comes up with the most ridiculous way possible to clean the painting. And anyway, very, very funny if you want to take a look at that. Okay, so I think there's more yellow on this side here. Okay, so now let's take, we're going to take the same brown, but we're going to just make it darker and darker. So I'm going to add some blue to it. Maybe even a bit of cool blue. All right, so that's too dark. Add some red to it. So this is our kind of our darkest color, which we'll use all over the place. Well, you know what? I'm going to use that same dark color. Let's get a small brush. I'm going to start going in here with on details on the face here. See how I'm just painting everything where it was, right? I'm not really inventing anything. I think I will paint the little white dots in separately. Now the mouth is where things get kind of funky, eh? So I'm not sure how she arrived, because see, here's the original line of the mouth. How did she? I think she did something, kind of straightened it out or something like this. Okay. So while I've got this darker color, I'm just going to go and kind of mix some of the lighter color back into it, and then I can just use this to She's also got a bit of white in here that makes it a bit more of a gray. Okay. So to get a bit more of this gray, I'm going to mix it into my darker color here. So this is just taking my darker color, mixing it into here. Okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna just go darker and darker. So let's I'm gonna mix this over here. Take my cool blue, my warm blue. Let's take some cool red since we haven't used any of that. This is just to help get as dark a color as humanly possible. Right, looks like a very dark purple here. We can add some cool yellow in there just to get it less purpley. And now we got like a pretty dark gray, like a very, very dark bluish gray, I would say. Okay. So let's take this really dark color here. And, you know, I probably want to do the background before I do too much of this stuff around the thorns, or what used to be thorns. So I'm just going to go over these eyes and darken them. smoothed out these details here. And there's sort of like these kind of stripes. Oh, I forgot. Keep forgetting this thing down here, so we'll put that in there. We'll get there eventually. In fact, let's just draw this out. That in there. I'm going to do the same painting again here. So on the other version, so you'll get to. We'll see if I get to arrive at the same place on two different paintings or not. Interesting. Her chin. Something about this. I think maybe the mouth needs to be bigger on mine. So maybe I'll. Maybe these eyes also need to be a bit bigger. I think I might have made them a little bit big. That's okay. And then let's go up here. Okay. We're just going to put some little white dots on those. Well, you know what? I'm going to wait for that to dry because otherwise they'll mix with the black. So, okay. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix some white into the same color to create a gray. So remember, I haven't used any black whatsoever on this canvas. This is all just my so-called regular primary colors. And then I just take a bit of the darker color and just quickly mix it with the lighter gray to do a little bit of blending, wet onto the canvas. Needs a bit more yellow in this gray. Just kind of taking some different colors and trying to just blend them a little bit, create a bit more texture in these areas. The great irony about this whole painting is how it sort of also has completely changed the fortunes of this one community. If you look up the kind of the main tourism, website for this tiny town, on the very top, very front and central, when you land there, it has Cecilia Giménez's attempted restoration right there, top, front and center. It's clearly the thing that the people in this town it put the town on the map, quite literally. It's before that very few people would bother going and visiting this church. I think they've raised, and these are old statistics, but somewhere around a couple $100,000 in charity for the church itself. Which is no small feat to... As anyone who's had experience fundraising can attest to. Mine's grayish, a little more gray, a little less yellow than hers. I could do some, I could do some glazes if I want to kind of bring it back out. We'll see. Like this area too, I was a little... not exactly sure. Well, I guess I can see. It just to me looked like there was also a little confusion here. Now that more that I'm looking at it, the more I see what hers makes some more sense. But anyway, I kind of like it like that. What else? Oh yeah, let's do that same sort of thing. It kind of right now looks like a woman with like a scarf on, like Mary Magdalene or something, which is quite ironic. Let's, okay, so I'm gonna mix another dark color. So mostly what I've been just using here, let's do that all over again. So to get a kind of a dark color, I'm just gonna use the warm blue and cool blue. Right, now we got this super blue. Let's take some cool red and some cool yellow. Nice dark color. And it would be darker if I didn't have some of this white underneath all of it, but so the white is mixing in and already making a bit of a gray. Okay. It is interesting painting on paper. It definitely has a different kind of texture than painting directly on the canvas. So let's take a small brush. And do some detail work. think it's these little things on the outside here which helped contribute it to the monkey moniker, because it just suddenly makes it look like this hairy creature. Oh, so I got a bit of paint smudging down here. Okay. And I think I'm going to do just a little bit of a glaze over top of these bands down here. So how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to take some of my glazing fluid, satin glazing fluid. Just put a little squirt there. Take another brush. And I'm just going to scoop up some of this darker color and put it off to the side here and blend this in. Okay. And then I'm going to just take it and go over the red. Which just very subtly darkens them a little bit, so it loses the intensity of that bright, bright, bright red. Even do the same thing anywhere else in the painting that I feel like might need just to darken down just a bit. It is a little funny to be taking this painting so seriously and trying to make something out of it. But I also think, I think there's something I feel like there's some attention. She was trying to fix this painting. She loved her local church. She wanted to do something to help, and in many ways she did it. She did exactly what she wanted to do. I mean, it didn't turn out the way she was maybe expecting, but I think in the end, it's sort of like if you think of it almost like you couldn't write a Hollywood movie like it. Here's someone who had all the best intentions, did this thing that became an international laughing stock, but ultimately saved her church, saved the painting, made the original painting, you know, that was, for all intents and purposes, forgotten and unloved. Clearly no one else cared much about it enough to want to do anything about it, and she, you know, now it's even the Martinez image has been reproduced over and over and over again, which would have had no reason to have been reproduced really beforehand. It's not a particularly exceptionally, his painting is not exceptional to begin with. So, you know, it's like the kind of thing I could see, who would, which actress? Oh, I'm thinking of a very specific one. What's her name? What was she in? Kind of one of the most famous British actors. She's a little bit older. What has she been in? I could see her playing this role really well. Oh my, she's been in a whole bunch of, it's gonna drive me nuts now. Okay, so here's one version. I think I'm going to just really quickly try to do the other one, and then if there's any little parts of it as I go, I might do any adjustments, and then we'll do the little dots in the eyes and the outside. On there. Oh, maybe I'll just keep it side by side so I can kind of see how I want to approach these. So maybe I'll start, I'm going to start maybe a different place this time, just showing you that there's no right or wrong way to begin these kind of things. Let's start at the eyes here. I don't know who it was, so somebody took my face and put it inside of this image and posted it onto the Facebook group. I thought that was quite funny. I got a good chuckle out of that. I appreciate that. Definitely a slightly different texture here, painting onto the paint, which is basically we have paint that I'm painting on top of. quite as smooth of a surface. See people wishing each other a happy Easter in the chat. Yes, Easter's coming up. I am contemplating doing a painting this weekend, a special Easter-themed painting. This was actually not my first choice for today's painting. I had a different one, and I was thinking of doing two paintings today. I'm kind of doing two paintings today. And I just sort of decided at the last moment to do this painting. I won't even tell you what the other one is. I'll save it for a rainy day. But as I was sort of putting this together, I realized, oh yeah, you know, it's like we have Easter this weekend. This is originally a painting of the crucified Christ, which is what Easter is all about. So it seemed actually, as funny as it is for a April Fool's kind of painting, it actually, besides actually just painting a crucified Christ to begin with, this is about as, you know, a very Easter kind of painting, really. Okay, I kind of like this yellow on yellow is quite intense. It reminds me. I walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain about 6 years ago, and this reminds me of the... Do I have the shell here? I used to have my Camino shell hanging here somewhere, but I've been cleaning my studio. Anyway, it kind of reminds me of the very iconic shell. And this is kind of a dark blue on yellow, all the colors of the Camino. Somewhere inside my head that was probably there. Okay. So I'm sort of painting this painting backwards compared to how I did the previous painting. That's why I think I love painting the same painting multiple times, because it just gives me an opportunity to play with different color combinations. And so now I'm just going to mix this gray again. I'm taking cool blue, warm blue, cool red, and some cool yellow. Mix it all together. Very dark color we get. Very dark color we get. And then I mix some white here. Yes, very dark color. That's my Yoda, by the way. Okay, so let's go back to here. And you know what? I am gonna, let's put a bit more warm yellow into this gray just to give it a little bit more life. Right now it's kind of a... I may even do a glaze over top of this gray to bring some of that back. Notice how, like, when I paint here, I sort of paint over paint, and then I bring it back. All right, that's a part of the painting process. Is, you know, sometimes people try to get it all perfect. I don't know. I think it's... I paint a little bit, paint it out, paint a bit, paint it out. quite like the brushy quality of her strokes here. I think it's kind of nice, actually. Same kind of look in this painting here. Let's do the same down below on the bottom. Get a little bit more yellow here. Okay. It's really hard to tell what, I think it was going like this. Is that what she was doing? Okay. actually kind of fun painting this because it's quite liberating. The sense of like, well, you know, it's the painting is so-called quote unquote already ruined, so it's not like I can make things any worse. Again, I don't really I'm not ridiculing her at all. I actually think, as I've said a few times already, she ultimately exceeded all of her goals in the most ironic way possible. Okay, so I just want to show you these two side by side here. Just I kind of like that yellow. It's kind of nutty, but you know, I've got basically the most of this done. I just gotta finish the face, and we'll do that next. Kind of took a few slightly different approaches to this. This one, obviously, I pretty much did the paintings backwards, right? In this one, I first started, I think, I outlined with some red in here, did some brown in the hair, then went and started putting a little bit of the yellow on the nose and the face, and then did the nose and all that kind of stuff, the mouth. Here I did the exact opposite. And then at the very end I did the yellow, or not the yellow, the gray, right? Whereas here, what I started right in here with the black outlines, and then I did the background. So yeah, exactly the opposite sort of process. So let's mix a brown. We'll start painting some browns. Guess we still got a bit of brown left here. So this is actually kind of what she just painted. It looks like almost like a greenish glaze over top of this. Which we could also do too. Just adding some red right into this here, into my brown. I'm going to go right into some magenta, the cool red. Let's just paint that directly in here. Look at it. Kind of electric color. Okay, and then while we've got this red on our brush, let's just modify it and make it a little bit darker. So I'm just going to take some blue, warm blue, and cool red. wonder how many people will actually make this painting. I don't know how many people are actually painting along with me or just watching. I'm so curious to see. Which reminds me, if you enjoy these lessons, and please like and subscribe to the channel. I know if you're a long-time viewer, you're sick and tired of hearing me say that. But most of the people that watch this are people that have never seen me or been to the channel before, that are not subscribers. So the more subscribers, the more easy it is for other people to find it, and we slowly catch more and more people along the way, and more people are picking up painting as a hobby, or maybe you're coming back to it for the first time in a while. So let's see. Next, let's do go over here and get these what she was attempting to do here was paint the crown of thorns on Jesus's head. So as this looks quite silly, but in the original you do see these little spikes coming out of the hair. She just sort of was a little heavy-handed with this. But if you look at medieval paintings, there are a lot of medieval paintings that actually look a lot like what we're painting right now. A lot of artists many years ago would make the crown of thorns look almost like a fur-lined hoodie or something, right? Okay. I'm going to go in here with just some warm yellow. Okay. Oh yeah, and then there was under the neck there. Oops. Touch up on the other painting too. What was that there? hammer. Okay, I'm going to take some brown. You know, painting a painting a second time like this, I see different things in the painting. Little slightly different colors here and there, and that I want to capture. Keep getting a little bit darker. Okay. Getting closer to the end on both of these. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a bit of actual glazing again on here. And then I'm going to take some black because I think that'll help do a little bit of outlining. We'll be close to being done here. Okay. It's funny to like paint a painting like this and feel like, wow, I'm struggling to get the likeness on this bizarre painting. Okay, so again, let's take a look at these side by side where they're at right now. I'm gonna glaze with some dark paint. Use these darker colors and do a glaze. As you can see, I'm just darkening all of this red in here. One thing with a glaze like this is I'm just using like the last bits of the paint that's on the palette and just scrubbing into that. I get this very kind of muddy color, but it's a transparent muddy color. And I can take that muddy color and spread it over any place that is a little bit too bright. And everything just suddenly gets darker, less luminous, and you can see how quickly that changed, right? And as it dries, it'll go a little more clear even. Now I've got, see this right here, this is, I think, a part of the photo transfer medium that was either not fully dry or it's become wet. Yeah, I guess it wasn't fully cured, and now me painting over it is sort of reactivating it, so I just have to, I might blow dry that. So, let's just see though, where's my image? Maybe a little too dark. So this is just sort of a bit of a glaze, a bit of a slightly greenish glaze going over top of this here. Just use the same glaze over top of this here. Okay, let's just see these again side by side. Pretty close. Little tiny differences between them, but I like that. Okay, what else do I want to do? Oh yeah, I was going to do black next, wasn't I? Okay. So, I think this one needs black a little bit more urgently. Paula says, I'm painting along always, and I enjoy, thanks. I'm 30% close, we'll post to show you, thanks. Cool. Thank you, Paula. Gail's there, happy Easter, everyone. And Ramadan. I was going to do a painting for Ramadan as well, but coming up, I'll be doing a number of paintings of Muslim artists as well, so I'm kind of excited to do that. I think that people have, oops, let's somewhat, where did, that's on the computer screen, okay, whew. Okay, so I'm going to use black for the first time on this painting. You know, I don't need much of it. That's basically, you know, how much toothpaste I put on my toothbrush. I'm just going to dip right in. Also because you don't want to put too much. Black, I find, is always the color that dries the fastest. I don't know what it is about its chemical properties, but I find that really drives me nuts. So I always want to put the least amount of black on my palette so that when I'm using it, it's as fresh as possible. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to mostly just do the eyebrows. And eyes and I think nostrils might be the only things that really get this black treatment. Let's do that on this one as well. Okay, and then I ask myself, do I want to darken anything in these areas? So I might do another little glaze. Let's see. So I'm going to take my glazing fluid and put it here. I'm going to take a brush, get some glazing fluid on it, and just get a bit of black on it. Just like that. Barely any, right? And now I can just do some really super subtle darkening in the painting. Just continuing to darken the red down here. And then I'm adding more black to the glaze. So it's going to go on kind of dark, but as it dries, it'll become a little bit more clear again and sort of fade a bit. Which is why, as I've said many times before, I think using glazing and really understanding how glazing works is great for beginner artists who are maybe a little bit afraid of making mistakes, because you can just do tiny little baby steps all the way through. Just take the same glaze, just go over a few things, make things a little bit darker to make them pop a bit. Okay. Now this one, I'm tempted to kind of do a little tweaking down here. Yeah, let's just... I think I'm pretty close to being done. I just want to do the outsides here. So, question is, what should we do? I think I might just put a white over top of this yellow, and we'll see what that looks like. I might actually do a white glaze, in fact. Maybe we'll do a little bit of a white glaze. Shelley says, I had to choose between this one and finishing The Persistence of Memory. I love Dali's pictures, so I just had to finish that one. Happy Easter to everyone, and especially you, Michael. I appreciate that. Okay. So, I'm going to put my glazing fluid right in here. And I'm going to mix this white in here. Now, I might get a bit of other colors accidentally on my brush, but I don't mind that. So let's see what this looks like. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is adding that glazing fluid to the white means it's going to be a little bit more transparent. So some of this yellow is going to just kind of, it will show through, which I think should be kind of cool. Won't be quite as electric as it currently is or was, but it won't hide it completely up either. So okay. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to do the other one. And you know, again, if I don't like it, I can always paint the yellow right back over top and it'll look just as good, maybe even better. Okay. is definitely takes this out of the pop art realm that it was in there for a few moments, right? That bright, bright yellow. You know, might have been a Andy Warhol kind of choice. You know, it's something he, you know, towards the end of his life, he started making a lot of versions of famous paintings, like particularly like Catholic images. He was a Catholic, came from a Catholic family, and there are, when I took I think I've mentioned before, I took a couple classes on Andy Warhol when I was in graduate school, and we looked at his paintings and movies, and there's some like religious themes in his work. Surprisingly, I think a lot of, obviously, it might come to quite a big surprise to some people, especially people that aren't big fans of his work, but he would go to church with his, he lived with his mom. Like, his mom lived with him for his entire adult life until she passed away. They would go to church together regularly on Saturdays. He'd probably be up all night long at Studio 54, and then go home and just go to church with his mom. You know, even in his 40s and stuff, as he was. Anyway, why was I talking about Warhol? Oh, I guess the background here. All right, so I can just kind of clean a few things up here. Okay, so again, let's take a look at these things side by side. Okay. Oh, I forgot the little dots for the eyes. I think that's going to make a big difference here too. Surprising, believe it or not. Believe it or not. Okay, let's do one of these at a time here. Okay. There's one. I may even have to wait for them to dry and apply a little bit more white, just because. I'm gonna hit them with the blow dryer and then just take another little look at and see how they look. Okay. Let's see. Got 1L in there. Oh my goodness. I think it's 1L in there. So this was, what did we do? We did this is the more info I can put on there when it's fresh in my mind, the more likely it is that I'll remember how these were made. So, let's see. Let's I don't know if I'm just going to try to... one thing I want to mention here before I wrap up that I see happening with this painting in my hands right now. Okay, so almost done here. I just thought I would mention, just quickly, so remember, you may have seen me kind of fiddling with a few things. I'm not sure how well they show up on camera. Yeah, if I hold that up, do you see this stuff happening here? That is the reaction of the photo transfer medium, which I remember I said might not have been fully cured or dried. And then, so I wiped off all of the paper. Some of this was still wet. I should have maybe blow dried it first. And then I started painting wet paint over this undried area. That creates this effect where it's now kind of bubbling. The air inside there is trying to escape, but there's paint covering it and hiding it, preventing that from escaping, so it's starting to kind of bubble under other parts of the picture, causing some instability. Now, if this was my own painting that I was going to try to sell, or that would be very concerning. That would be a bad thing to happen. It makes it look like there's some instability in the canvas. Now, it's all acrylic. I have full confidence it's going to dry fine. I don't think it's going to peel off or flake or anything. But just for future reference, that would be probably not something I would want to have on the surface of a painting I'm really excited about. However, when it comes to this painting, that delamination of the material where it is not adhering properly to one another, I think it actually is serendipitous, right? This is the perfect example of Bob Ross talking about the happy accident, because that is literally why this painting exists in the first place. Is the original painting by Martinez, the paint was flaking off the wall, probably because he was painting some type of material over top of like the paint that he was using wasn't sticking properly to the wall, or the original paint on the wall itself was falling apart. I think there was some sort of water leak happening inside, perhaps the plaster of the wall. And so the wall was probably bubbling like this, and then eventually it just started to peel off. So I think there's something really incredible about the fact, to me, that that's happening in this painting unintended, of course, but even if I tried to make that happen, I don't know if I would be able... I mean, to be honest, it's one of those kind of accidents that I'd be really hard-pressed to make happen intentionally if I wanted to make it happen. Okay, so let's just take a look at these side by side again. I think it's just so interesting, personally, to kind of see. So obviously the background, you know, I've got that little bit of a yellowy background. It, you know, I mean, what do I think about that yellow? I think it's fine. I think, you know, it is a bit of a sicklier yellow. I'll have to sleep on it. I do prefer it than just plain white. I could be convinced to put another coat of white over it, not in an attempt to completely hide the yellow, but just to make it a little bit less yellowy. That might be a, you know, something I could consider doing. And then here's the other one. This is the one using the Collage. With the Mod Podge, just pasted the paper down directly. One thing is again, we'll see if I can hold this up. Yeah, I think right around in there, you can see this wrinkle going right up down the middle and through the face. So to me, I see that paper quite clearly. Does it bother me? I probably would be one of the only persons that would be able to see that or know that that's happened in my own painting. I don't know if many other people would see it. It just looks very, very smooth, right? This, we can see the texture of the canvas, and it looks, you know, we have the weave of the canvas, and then suddenly we have this hyper smooth, slightly wrinkled surface, which is a telltale giveaway that there's paper there, right? Now, does that make it wrong or bad or a failure? I don't think so. It just maybe is not something I totally desire here. So, you know, everything has, you know, every single different tool and material that you use to create a painting is going to create a different effect, which has a very, you know, when people look at it, they may observe it and they might see it, but they might not be even aware of what they see. They might just have some kind of a feeling of like, I don't know if I like that or I like it. And it's just sort of being, you know, you put these different experiences into your pockets and then you use them whenever you might need them, because it might help convey an idea more effectively than the one or the other might do. So if I was to have to choose between these two, I guess just conceptually I like this bubbling and the peeling and the kind of unevenness of this surface. That appeals to me a little bit more, although I do think I painted this one perhaps better. The one with the photo collage as opposed to photo transfer. Anyway, small differences. I'm nitpicking, but you know, that's one of the fun things about doing this kind of thing, is you get to have that nitpicky experience. Okay. So this was my first kind of little bit of a detour, strange kind of a bit of a different episode than I've done so far. Let me know if you found this particularly interesting and you'd like some kind of a little bit more wacky and different types of paintings. You can, if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to make a donation, small or large, there's a link to the PayPal down below, or if you wanted to send a check or e-transfer, you can contact me through my website or through the Facebook group. Remember to join the Facebook group and upload your version of today's painting or any of the other paintings from the, how many have we done? I don't know how many episodes of the painting class we've got about 60 different paintings that we've done. So lots of material there to keep you busy. And new people are joining all the time. And it's so cool to see all of that engagement and the community of, I think, almost 90 people we have now. So, yeah, I think I might do a painting over the Easter holiday. I'm not exactly sure when, maybe Saturday or Sunday. If you can join me for that, great. If you're busy and you can't, that's all right too. I'll just bank all these episodes and you paint them whenever you get a chance. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening or morning, wherever you happen to be on planet Earth. Stay safe. If you're having to spend a little bit extra time quarantining indoors, it's a bit of a pain in the butt. But maybe it gives you a little bit more time to dedicate to painting. And, you know, all of this is going to be behind us, you know, probably, you know, within the next 8 months or so. This will be kind of a bit of a something that, you know, we'll be glad that it's over, but I think there's going to be some things that we're going to miss. I think about that all the time. I'm trying to just take little moments just to reflect on the opportunities, as odd as that might sound, that this pandemic has sort of brought us all. And the opportunity to spend more time with family. I have my mom is visiting us from Calgary upstairs. I'm going to go up and see them or see her and the rest of my family. And while we can't all be with all of our family here on this Easter weekend, you know, maybe just give a phone call to a family or friend that you haven't spoken to a little while and just say hi, thanks for being a friend, and yeah, just take a little bit of time just to appreciate all the wonderful things that we do have, right? Okay, everybody, enjoy the rest of your evening. We will see you again very, very soon, and happy painting. I look forward to seeing what you all do.